Welcome to the You Can Man podcast, episode 48. I'm Josh.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Dave.
And on this week's episode, getting started with astronomy.
All right, guys, welcome back to the You Can Man podcast, where we believe what one man can do, you can do as well, you know, with a little help from your friends and the proper know-how. This week, we're going to be talking about astronomy. Look, we don't know anything about astronomy. However, a member of our Facebook group knows an awful lot about astronomy, and we're going to be having a remote guest, Josh, on with us this show today. So, got that to look forward to. Guys, what has been going on?
I have a question for you guys. Tim, this is not directed to you because you're obviously not going to know anything about it because it's related to sports. But
Sports ball?
yeah, sports ball.
Right.
But Josh, can you tell me the name of where the Atlanta Braves play baseball?
Like the new park they play at called
Yes.
Truist Park?
Truist Park. So
Tim probably knew that.
when they
I knew that.
yeah, all right. So
Please.
when they built it a few years ago, I
probably
guess
told
now it was SunTrust Park, and
Which is a way better name.
it is, I guess, but you know, every couple of years now, it seems like these parks sell the naming rights to some other company for however, you know, whatever crazy sum of money, and now they've picked like Truist Park. And whenever anybody's, it's a terrible name. First of all, okay, it's the worst name. I'm not going to say it's the
It's
worst
a
name.
made up
It's
word.
It's probably somebody's last name. I don't mean to hate
don't
on.
think so.
I don't want to hate on your last name.
That is a marketing
I'm just trying to.
tested
I agree.
word.
I agree. I want to cover all my bases. Though.
I know that.
All right. Let me back up and say that some terrible marketing department came up with that name.
Well,
Yes.
If it is someone's last name, you have a terrible last name for a ballpark. All right, it's just the way that it is. So
You know it's the new name of the bank. You already knew that.
I understand
okay,
that.
Yeah.
but I want to
So
start.
they weren't thinking, oh, we got a ballpark in Atlanta.
No, they were like, we work for a terrible bank and we want to use the same name for the ballpark.
Well, what's funny is I did hear somebody from the marketing team that either the agency that pitched this idea or their internal, whose ever idea this was, the guy actually stood up in front of like a group of people and talked about how this was a like tested name and people just loved it. Like
Nope.
he was telling us that we in fact loved it.
Whenever anybody says it, they say it. I don't know how to describe it, but it's something like this: Truist. Like
Here's the deal.
they're not sure.
Here's the deal. And I've said this before, I think. In 3 years from now, we will think nothing
Yes,
of it.
correct.
I will, and that's why I hope you're right, Tim, because I hope we can change the name. I want to start a grassroots movement to change the name of that ballpark. And just as a Braves fan, I'm not going to recognize Truist Park. It's kind of like the former place that the Braves played, Turner Field. People kind of loosely and casually called it the Ted, which was cool. Everybody liked it. We're going to call it the Ted. Not everybody called it the Ted, but it was kind of a
Everybody knew what that was.
yeah. Everybody knew what it was.
Man,
so I want to
think
change the name.
It should be called the Hank. Is what
Well,
it should be
here's
called.
Ooh, that's
two things.
good.
Well, I've heard people petitioning to at least call it Hank Aaron Field at Truist Park. I've heard that idea. The other problem they're about to have is I've already heard people in the Atlanta radio market already saying that they will, in fact, be calling it the TP for Truist Park.
I've heard that. I've heard people say that jokingly. Obviously,
That's
right?
going to happen, though, because it's going to be the whole tomahawk chop backlash that we went through last
It's gonna
year.
be so bad.
So
Anything's
they're
better.
running into
Look,
problems left and right.
Braves Field, Battery Park, something, anything.
Yes.
Can we just come up with something?
Aaron.
I wish we could do it. It's probably not.
I say
gonna
that.
happen.
I say the Hank. Let's start.
Yeah,
it.
let's do it. Let's do the Hank.
All right.
I'm all
like it.
about that.
All right, Josh, what you got?
I got nothing. That's it. That was a good. I mean, that was a
Okay.
good rant.
I'm
It was-
fired up about it.
was
That wasn't a
worth it.
rant. Okay,
Dave
that
just-
was not a rant.
Dave just took up all our time.
I could
there.
rant about this, but I'm not going to because we're running out of time.
Yeah, I had a stupid story. I broke a board in the sauna at
with
the
your
Y.
hand. Oh,
No, I stepped down. Okay, so in the at the Y.
this
Look,
wasn't a karate.
You
practice?
broke
So-
a board in the sauna, like a piece of the
at the Y. They have a sauna. And it's like this 2-tiered wooden slat benches
with your body weight. You're like a wilting flower.
I know, and well, this is just funny because no one was in there.
All right.
I was close. Let's just say that. But
Partially
not a real
clothed.
sauna.
Yeah. I take the shirt off, but I leave the shorts on. Not other guys. And yeah, it's just weird because there's a lot of old men at RY. Anyways, I was like, man, nobody's in here. I'm going to do another set of push-ups. So
Whoa.
I got up and then I like stepped down and then I just went straight through. I went straight through the bench.
Dang.
So you just got your clothes on, took off.
Yeah, pretty much. I went and told the people at
knew
the
you
Y.
would.
It
That's
is
the right
it
thing
is
to
the
do.
why. So
I was like, look,
It's a
I
nice
broke a
Y.
board. That wood was just dry.
Well, it's
dry,
probably been
yeah.
there since it was built 30 years ago.
Yeah, probably. But they already fixed it because I went back in there today and they had already fixed it.
That would
so.
have been a lawsuit.
But so if you can just imagine me and just alone in the sauna.
did you do your push-ups? Did you bang them out?
No, dude. Because I kind of jacked my knee too. It's like, dude.
when you broke it,
Yeah.
Dang.
Because my leg went through the bench.
you should sue them. I'm just kidding. You shouldn't.
I mean, they asked me if I was okay. I
We
was
don't
like,
need that in our society
Yeah.
anymore.
It's like, I'm fine. Okay. I think that's enough
Yeah.
of shooting the breeze there, guys.
good.
Anyhow, we're gonna have Josh on, so we got to call him up.
Josh Palmer, in fact, not
ring him
myself.
up.
Not
sorry,
myself.
yes. And he is an active member of our Facebook group page, and just so happens to be I'd kind of call him an astronomy expert.
He's like a semi-pro
Yeah.
astronomy photographer.
Whoa.
I think that he would probably buck against saying
He
that he's
will,
an
but
expert.
that's what humble people do.
But
So he gets paid money to look
No.
at planets?
No.
That's not semi-pro,
No.
though.
In comparison to us,
Yes.
he is most definitely an expert.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
So we will be back after this. Hi, guys. Welcome back. We've got Josh Palmer, remote guest. He is spending his evening on the UK Man podcast. So we really appreciate him being here. So, Josh, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Josh, welcome to the UK Man podcast. We're happy to have you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so Josh Palmer, and this is me, Josh, the host speaking.
Josh,
so this
the
is
host.
gonna get confusing.
I'm gonna mess it up.
But Josh has known Dave and myself since about 2009,
It's going on 10 years, I
which
think.
is 10 plus
Yeah.
years. We were in a really nerdy musical organization about 10 years ago, and had tons of fun and spent multiple summers hanging out and playing music. So,
Yeah.
Josh, it's awesome. You've been a critical part of our fan page for sure.
Yeah.
Lots of contribution there. And we wanted to have Josh on because he has posted over the past few years at least on Facebook. He'll just like throw up a random photo of like the moon. And I think it looks like it came out of a magazine.
Yeah, I did a little bit of Facebook stalking just, to kind of see some of it. And some of the pictures they're amazing, especially when you consider that it came from, an amateur astronomer.
Yeah, so and that's the reason because, and Josh is going to be super humble, I'm sure, and say, his stuff's not that great. But for someone who doesn't do this by trade, the pictures I'm seeing are like mind blowing. And so we're having Josh on here to kind of give us a guide on, hey, how can somebody who's interested in astronomy get started?
Yeah. So, Josh, if you would, let's just start off. So we always try to ask our guests, too, where are you on the DIY scale? So whenever you come on the UK Man podcast, we always like to try to ask our guests this. So this means on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you tackling DIY projects?
A 10 is Tom Silva and a 1 is Josh Matthews.
Oh, dude.
I would probably put myself around 6. I'm pretty comfortable doing projects around the house and some minor car repairs and things like that. But if I've never been led through something like with one of my my dad or father-in-law, I'm pretty intimidated by projects. So that's what I would say.
Okay, so 6 is solid.
I think 6 is a little low for Josh. I've
You
seen
think so?
I've seen
I
some
would
of the
agree.
stuff he gets into. Josh is a researcher and he's very thorough, and so I think he can tackle
Okay.
Just about anything he puts his mind to.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and your experience with astronomy, and specifically with photography with astronomy.
Sure. I've been serious into astronomy probably since 2014, when we moved out of the kind of the urban environment out towards the country. I started to see a lot more in the sky, and I got very, very interested in it. So once I joined the local club and started, buying equipment, I got pretty heavy into it. I started taking pictures probably about 4 years ago. I just started taking small pictures of planets and the moon just to see what it would look like. And I found that I really enjoyed that. So I kept practicing and upgraded my equipment a couple times. And so I end up now where I spend a lot of my time working on those pictures, and I very much enjoy it. So I try to share my experience with other people, especially new club members and anybody who has as an audience for astronomy. I like to talk to people and share that passion that I have with them.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about what you feel like the real value is to astronomy. So if you're selling this to somebody that just has little to no interest up to this point, because maybe they just don't even know how to get into it. So what would you be telling them? Like, you got to get into this because... Mm-hmm.
I would say you probably should get into it because I find it very relaxing, very therapeutic to be out by myself or with other astronomers on a quiet night, late at night, surrounded by nature. I really enjoy that. It really refreshes me. I also enjoy that I can share this with my kids, and, they're just old enough now to where they're interested in it. And my 7-year-old really enjoys going to the star parties and the club meetings and events with me. So I do enjoy sharing it with my kids. So that's probably the two things I would tell people is you will get a lot out of it.
Yeah, that's a really cool angle on it. And I mean, it's really simple, but I mean, I just think I'm not an astronomy fanatic, I would say. But I do enjoy like the whole Apollo space program, like the whole Apollo specifically, super fascinating to me. I try to watch everything I can about it. And what's cool is a lot of those movies, you'll just, in their movies, some of them are embellished, but the guys would just like go out on their back patio at a party and just like stare up at the sky and be like, oh man, like look what's out there. Look what we're trying to get to. And I think we lose that today a lot, just being in the city, like you said, Josh, like the light pollution, not even being able to see what's out there. There's so much we're not even aware of anymore.
Absolutely.
I think there's also something innate in people that, and maybe I'm just speaking from, for myself, but if you look into a telescope and you see Jupiter, I mean, everybody is going to say, I mean, it's like a wow moment, right? It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I've always wanted to be the guy that I can look up in the sky. It's
and
funny.
Just say this.
Yeah, it's like I feel like when I was a kid, maybe I had envisioned that was just something you learned when you're a dad or something. Okay. It's like, I don't know. I just thought like maybe by this point in life I would just kind of know some of these things, but I totally don't. If I look up in the night sky, look, I can maybe pick out like the Big Dipper, but that's about it. Like I really don't know what I'm looking at. So I would like to get to that point. And so, Josh, would you say that there was a point in your life that you can remember where you looked up to the sky and you're like, I don't really know what is what? And talk to us about those like first steps that you started taking to research and learn what in the world you're looking at.
Sure. I can remember it wasn't that long ago where I would look up and I wouldn't be able to tell you more than just a couple objects, but you start slow and you start with, constellations and planets that are very easy to remember. I joined the local club here in Greenville, and I learned so much from the other members and by going to the star parties, and I just focus on learning one thing at a time. So I pick out a new constellation that I would like to learn. And you just start to train yourself to see the patterns in those stars. And of course, you read about those other events that are taking place, like the planets that may be in the sky or the phases of the moon. And you just really study a little bit at a time. And it's going to be a very long time before I feel confident that I can look up in the sky and show people a lot of different things because there's so much up there to learn.
Yeah, so let's talk about the conditions. So I want to just go out there and be able to see a lot of things, even though maybe I'm not at the point to where I can really recognize a ton of stuff. However, I want to be in the right conditions to see it. So talk to us about, things like light pollution and just the best conditions to see the night sky.
Sure. The best conditions you're going to want would be a clear sky, of course. Clear sky doesn't necessarily mean that the conditions are great, however, because there is something called seeing, and that is it's related to the movement of the air above you. So it can be clear outside, but if the seeing is poor, then you're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of twinkling of the stars, or a lot of waviness in front of the objects. So seeing conditions are very, very important, as are dark skies. It depends on what you want to look at. If you want to look at the moon or the planets, a completely dark sky isn't very important, but if you want to look at something that is very faint, like a nebula or a star cluster, something like that, then the dark sky is very important because you don't want that light to wash out what you're looking at. So light pollution has a lot to do with that, but sometimes weather conditions like humidity and dust and smoke and things like that can also affect the dark sky. It creates a glow. And then finally, temperature. You typically would want to go outside when it's a little bit cooler. When it's hot outside, I think you'll find it's probably a little bit more challenging to look through a telescope when it's very hot and humid. Again, it goes back to that seeing conditions.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. What would you say is your best experience location-wise for seeing the night sky? Like, if you could think about all of your times out there, where have you seen the best sky?
The best sky I've ever seen was out in Tucson, Arizona. I went out to visit family out there every year, and I remember the first year just being in their backyard. And because Tucson has very strict light controls, there's very little pollution, very little light pollution, if any at all. So I just remember laying on my back and looking up at the stars, and I just could not believe how many stars there were. The closest I've ever been to that is at our club's dark sky site, which is about an hour north of Greenville. And you get up there, you get into the mountains really. And other than the lights from Greenville, it's very, very good seeing up there. So there have been several evenings where I was just absolutely amazed how clear it became. And it may have been cloudy a couple hours before that, but sometimes it just clears up and it's just magnificent.
So that seems like it would be the biggest hurdle to being able to see stuff in the night sky is light pollution. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say light pollution is a big factor, but weather for me, basically what's the weather like? Because that's my biggest challenge. It can ruin any good plans that you've made, if a cloud rolls in at the wrong time.
Okay. I know I'm familiar with some of the astronomy apps out there. I think my wife's got one where you can hold it up to the night sky and it will show you kind of what you're looking at based on, I don't know how these things work, but if you could suggest one of these astronomy apps to kind of get people started, what would be like the best kind of entry level app to check out?
The first entry-level app I would suggest would be an app called Sky Guide. It's one of several apps that are free where you can just point it around and it will show you the constellations. If I had to tell someone to try an app that had a few more features, I would tell them to try Sky Portal, which is also free in the App Store, and that has a little bit more information about what you're doing. But many of these astronomy apps, use GPS and use the compass and those components to help you point around the sky. So it really helps you learn the night sky because you can just point the camera to what you're looking at, and it will tell you exactly what you're looking at.
Very cool. So as we get into, we'll get into your equipment as we get down the road here in conversation. But for someone, again, we're just starting out. We talked about kind of the conditions of what we're looking for. What can we do if we're not quite ready to buy equipment? What can we do to go out and kind of start enjoying the stars and the sky?
There is a lot to look at that does not require any equipment at all. So examples would include things like looking at the moon, the different phases of the moon. Planets, of course, are very easy to see when they're in the sky because they're very bright. And so you may notice a star that's brighter than you remember, and it may be in a different spot each night. So you can see the planets. You can see satellites going overhead if you know what they look like. You can see, of course, constellations because those are big. You can see stars. You can see big clusters. You can see the Milky Way, which, if you're in a suburban environment, you may not have ever seen the Milky Way, but on a good night, you look up and you see basically a cloud that stretches across the sky and it never moves. And that's the Milky Way galaxy. And that's just full of stars. Of course, you can see meteor showers. You can see, lunar and solar eclipses. So these are all examples of things you don't have to spend a dime on to enjoy those.
So if I'm going to go out one night, let's say bring a couple friends, what should we bring?
I would bring a very comfortable chair. Preferably one that can recline. I use a chair called a zero gravity chair where your feet and your back both recline so you can look straight up at the sky. That makes it very, very comfortable to watch big areas of the sky without having to crane your neck. I would also bring an inexpensive pair of binoculars. They don't cost much money, and that will allow you to see actually quite a bit, and you won't have to break the bank to do that. It would be helpful to bring a tablet or a phone so that you can use one of those apps to learn about what you're seeing. And of course, prepare beforehand. If you've got an event coming up like a meteor shower, it's an excellent time to go outside and just look up at the sky.
Yeah, I like the be comfortable point because I think a lot of people, just with our culture, I know that's a very broad term, but we're all like busy and multitasking and we want to be on our phones and all. But if you just go out with the mentality of like, hey, I'm going to get comfortable, I'm going to relax, and I'm going to spend time here doing this without being distracted.
It sounds like to me, this is something that you need patience for. You're not just going to go out there and see within 5 minutes,
check the box, go back inside.
Well, even a meteor shower, because I've done that before. My wife and I have gone out to check out a meteor shower, and you're sitting there for a while, and then finally, oh, there's one. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's another. That sort of thing. And so it is something you got to be more patient with.
And isn't there's some time for your eyes to even adjust? You've got to give yourself. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. When you stay out in the low light levels, your eyes will actually adapt and they'll chemically change to allow you to see fainter objects. So if you're going to be outside for a little while, you'll find that your eyes adjust and everything gets much brighter and you'll have a lot easier time seeing objects in the sky.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about telescopes. So if I want to jump up to the next level, I've seen a lot of stuff with just binoculars or the naked eye, and I've started learning stuff about moon phases and that sort of thing. And I want to take it up to the next level, and I want to get a telescope. I guess there's so many different telescopes out there that are probably tens upon thousands of dollars and stuff like that. But maybe just an entry level thing. What do I need to know to even begin shopping for something like that?
I would say that the first thing I tell people is to stay away from the telescopes you might buy in the stores. So you've all seen them, a small telescope that says it's got 300 times magnification and it's $29.99. That telescope isn't going to do anything for you other than frustrate you. So you want to start with a brand, a respected brand. So examples would be Celestron, Meade, Orion. There are actually quite a few brands that would be recommended. I generally tell people to get a first telescope. You don't want to get a cheap telescope. So you're looking at least $150 for a telescope that you would point yourself. If you want to start out with a telescope that's going to move around for you and point to objects automatically, now you're talking about $300 or so, and that's actually a pretty fair price for an entry level telescope. The other thing I would point out is you want to buy the biggest telescope you can afford and comfortably move. So, there's you want to make sure that this is a telescope that if you want to take it outside to look, you can very easily pick it up and take it out without having to do much work. That's a really big important point for me. As I've gotten more skilled, of course, my telescopes have gotten bigger, and I am more comfortable moving those big telescopes around. But if I would have started out with something this big, I would have been very discouraged very quickly. So when I say you want a big telescope, what I mean is you want the biggest aperture you can afford, and that allows more light into your eyepiece so you can see objects that are fainter and they'll be brighter and sharper.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, you've mentioned the clubs that you're a part of. So I'm wondering, the folks, well, I mean, I guess it's different across the country, but the folks that you're familiar with and the clubs that you're a part of, is that something that, a novice person could come into and be like, hey, can I look at some stuff through your telescope for a minute kind of thing, just to kind of test out different telescopes and that sort of thing? Is like, I guess what I'm getting at is, how friendly are these clubs?
They're 100% friendly. Now, I've been a member of our club here in Greenville for almost 6 years, and not only do they tolerate people looking through the telescopes, but they are very, very excited to share their telescopes with other people. And it's a great idea to just come to a club and test out that other equipment and see what it actually looks like, and see if that's what you want to do. I find these people very social, and you would think that astronomy would be a solitary activity, but really it's best when you have other people there with you at the same time. When you're hanging out for 3 or 4 hours just looking at the stars, it's pretty wonderful.
Very cool. And I'm sure also in a community like that, there's probably some sort of used market. Would I be correct in assuming that some guys upgrading their telescopes, now there's a used telescope available, maybe you can get one that way a little cheaper?
Craigslist or other local ads, you'll see that there are quite a few telescopes that are what I would consider entry level. Maybe they bought them and they tried them and didn't like them, or if they're like me, they're selling them because they've just upgraded to a little bit larger model.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is, the price points you were mentioning, I'm just thinking about some of the stuff, especially if you have kids and this is like an activity you're doing with kids. How much just junk money have we thrown away in the hundreds of dollars that is not useful for kids as far as educational? And the price points you were saying, I was like, oh my gosh, that is totally worth the investment. Like, if this is really something you want to do as a family, man, I think that is not bad.
Yeah, the money you put into telescopes and this equipment goes a long way. They last a long time. It's not something that's going to break in a year as long as you stick with the good brand names and good quality products. So I would say it's worth every penny to put into a nice telescope, and it's actually, they retain their value pretty well. I have successfully upgraded mine every couple years and found that it's actually pretty easy to sell them and regain some of that money pretty reliably.
Let's talk about your equipment that you're currently using, because I'm really interested to know, how much did that cost?
Whoa.
Personal question.
Yeah, because I don't know, like somebody that's really into astronomy, like if you get really into it, like Josh is, like what are you all in for?
Yeah, well, we're gonna post some of Josh's pictures as well, so you guys will be able to see like the quality he's getting, because to me it is absolutely mind blowing, and we'll put that out there. So anyway, Josh, what does it take, like at your level today? Yeah, what's your setup?
I want to hear like the specs, like what is, when you upgraded to the latest one that you have, what did that do for you?
Sure. So most of the pictures that I've posted online in the last few years were taken with a 9 1/4 inch Celestron telescope. So that's actually a pretty large telescope to still be portable. And I took a lot of, pictures of planets and the moon with that telescope. However, I found that I needed a little bit more light. So a couple weeks ago, I bought myself a 11-inch Celestron. It is about twice the weight. It is a lot bigger than my last telescope, but that's going to allow me to take even sharper and better pictures of everything. So this particular telescope retails for about $3,000. I got it used on eBay through a reputable seller. Spent $2,100 on it. So you can save a considerable amount of money if you find a nice used model. But it doesn't end with the telescope. You've got to put a lot of money into some other accessories if you want to do photography. The actual camera equipment and some of the other tools and eyepieces and adapters that you'll need to do that type of work. So all in all, I'd probably put about $4,000 to $5,000 into the total value of my equipment.
Yeah, I was totally expecting you to say that your newest telescope was like 10 grand at least.
Yeah, whenever I hear telescope, it to me it's highly specialized like scientific equipment. So like we're going to start at $5,000. Like that's what's in my mind.
Well, I'm curious how you mentioned some of them can be difficult to move and kind of, the mobility is an important aspect. How much do these things weigh?
My newest telescope, the total weight of the telescope is about 85 to 90 pounds.
Whoa. Okay.
Whoa.
That is significant to look around.
That's equipment.
Because now when you
That's
say
like 3 children.
when you say 85 to 90 pounds, is that just the telescope itself? Because you've got the tripod. Is that including the tripod or just
that would be including the tripod?
Okay.
Yeah. The tripod itself is only about 20 pounds, but the assembly that sits on top, that's the mount and the optical tube together on this new telescope is about 65 pounds.
Okay.
So I've kind of had to do a little bit of practicing and a little bit of working out and making sure I do that safely. But as long as I do it safely, I can still move that around.
Yeah, and I am positive that if this is like any other hobby, there's got to be a gazillion accessories that companies in the industry are trying to sell you. So I can only imagine that there's some sort of special carrying case.
I was imagining like a rollerboard type thing that you drag with the wheels and everything.
Yeah.
There are products out there where you can leave the telescope on a buggy or a cart and you can actually just pull that around when you need to use it, and you move it to your location and you basically just set up the telescope right on the cart, and that can save a lot of hassle. I actually built for basically the 2 telescopes ago, I built a custom case out of a toolbox from Home Depot. And this is actually pretty common. You take a toolbox and you outfit it with foam and other things. And so I custom fit it for the telescope. And for just maybe a couple $100, I had a custom built case that fit everything I needed exactly. And believe it or not, this larger telescope fits in the same model of rolling toolbox, just with a little bit less foam inside.
Nice.
So I've got my new case here ready to outfit with foam, and that'll let me take that telescope to outreach events and star parties anywhere I need to take it.
Okay.
Very cool. So as next steps, you've given us tons of good background on, pricing and models and kind of what to expect from that standpoint. Can you talk a little more about your club specifically, and then, how to find a good club in your area?
Yeah. So my club is called the Roper Mountain Astronomers, and it's located here in Greenville. We meet at the Roper Mountain Science Center. There are lots of ways you can find clubs in your area. Generally, I would start just on the internet, go to do a search and find Astronomy Club, with your city name. Sometimes you can find other websites that list of things to do in your city. You can also go to Facebook and you can search for clubs that way. So the internet probably is still the fastest way to find a club that would be near you.
So Josh, we had the solar eclipse recently. That was 2 years ago? About?
Yeah, I was gonna say recently. It was like 2.5 years ago, was it not?
Yeah, Josh probably knows the date.
He probably does.
Where were you for that? What did you do for your? How'd you guys celebrate that?
Believe it or not, that eclipse happened right through my backyard. So I had the best seat in miles around right here in my neighborhood, where we just kind of met as a neighborhood right over in our common area, and sat down and put on our solar shades and enjoyed it right here at home.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, and for our listeners, when Josh says Greenville, South Carolina, I think every state has a Greenville, right? But yeah, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that was kind of right in the perfect viewing zone. Or something.
We had a neighborhood get together with some folks, and Tim and I live across the street from each other, so we did it in Tim's front yard, but. I made a horrible assumption because there are different, obviously the closer you get to the line, I don't know what you call it, transit line or whatever, the precise location where it's going to actually get pitch dark.
Right.
I was under the assumption of if you're kind of near that, it'll still be really cool. And that was not true.
Really?
It got dim. It's like someone dimmed the lights.
No, I thought it was great.
It was weird. It was super weird, but I was not satisfied with my decision not to go north.
Man. I thought that was great.
No, next time, and there's one like 2025, right, Josh?
2024.
2024. I'm going. I don't care. I think I'm going to go to Texas maybe, but I'm going. I'm making it happen.
Okay.
I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to it.
I would do that. That sounds cool, but I thought it was impressive even here in Atlanta, so... But
there is a big difference between, a partial solar eclipse and a total solar eclipse where you are actually in this line of totality. Now, I've seen both, and I can attest to the fact that when the sun is completely blocked, it's very, very strange things happen around you. You've got, birds and insects making noises they would only make at night. It gets very cool, and you start to see all the stars in the sky. And of course, you get to see that corona, basically the part of the sun that we don't get to see unless the moon is in front of it. So I would highly recommend, if you can, get to a total solar eclipse. They happen they don't happen very frequently here in the United States,
except for this time.
yeah, we're getting pretty lucky. In fact, the people who live in Southern Illinois are going to get to enjoy it again because it's practically heading through the exact same spot, but just
there is an area that's going to get direct hit twice, right? Mathematically there. Yeah, I think, and my brother Jeremy, Josh, but he was in Kentucky, and I forget what was special, but they were in some special spot too. Like it was in the totality, but also closest to the something. Oh, that was like the longest period or something. Right. They got to see that. My parents went up and did that with them and said it was amazing.
Cool. All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up there. But Josh, we got more from Josh because he's got the bonus segment for us.
Josh came prepared.
He's bringing it.
So for UKMN listeners that are just joining us, we usually do a bonus segment. And so we don't really know exactly what Josh is going to talk about here. So it's going to be a little bit of a surprise for us. But anyways, we will be back after the break.
This episode is sponsored by 1776 United. 1776 United is a patriotic and historically inspired lifestyle brand. They make the best patriotic shirts and apparel on the market today. I personally own many of their products, and if you want to don patriotic gear without looking gaudy, check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and at 1776united.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. Josh Palmer, that is, has got the bonus segment for us. So he's been on the show talking all about astronomy. And I'm assuming, hey, maybe not, but I'm assuming that he's going to talk about astronomy. So, Josh, what you got for us, man?
Well, I have something related to astronomy, and that is the International Space Station. So most astronomers I know have a deep passion for anything related to space, and that includes space exploration. So I wanted to quiz you guys a little bit about the International Space Station just to see how much you know.
Oh, you guys are going down.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to smoke you all.
I know nothing.
Well, so. I'm obviously going to win because a few months ago, I took my family out and watched the space station fly directly overhead. at a parking deck.
So
I didn't-
now you know
Awesome.
everything.
Yeah.
I didn't ask this earlier, but you can see the space station
with your naked eye.
eye?
Yes, it looks like a big, bright airplane.
Really?
Yep.
It's actually just a projection that the government
Well,
puts.
yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually not actually there.
It's like
Flat Earth.
chemtrails.
Flat
yeah.
Earth. So I'm an expert on the space station. I
Okay.
also
go
part
ahead.
2. Here we're never going to get to this segment. Part 2. I always think about this when I think of the space station, and we were just talking about the eclipse. But Josh, I'm sure you saw on YouTube a guy, Destin Sandlin, Smarter Every Day. He captured the International Space Station transiting in front of the eclipse. He caught that on
That's
camera.
crazy.
He took pictures of it.
You got to do a
He
lot of
timed. Yeah,
calculations.
he's an engineer, but like it was amazing. He like freaked out too that he even got it because he just did all this math.
All right, there's
and then
your
set his
there's your
camera to fire.
challenge, Josh. Next go round.
Step it up.
Yeah, we want to see that. So, okay, sorry. Go ahead and hit us with
I'm not sorry.
with your International Space Station trivia.
All right. All right. First question is approximately how far above the Earth does the ISS orbit? Is it A, 240 miles, B, 1,300 miles, C, 5,700 miles, or D, 11,000 miles?
Dave, A.
I was kind of thinking A too.
Yeah, it's got to be A.
That's right.
Oh, all right. One for Dave.
I was thinking, my first number, I was like 69 miles. I don't know why I thought that, but
Yeah, most people think it does orbit a little bit higher than that, but 240 miles is the distance from Atlanta to Charlotte. And when you tell people that's
Wow.
how close it is, it's kind of surprising.
It's really close.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, you just never think about this.
Nope.
do you think
I
that's
never
close?
think about that.
240 miles away from Earth? That seems.
Well, think about
That's
it.
a long. That's an uncomfortable distance for
Yeah,
me.
but think about it in terms of being on top of a mountain, and you can look out and see something that's probably that far away.
Oh,
If you're
yeah,
on
easy.
So I mean,
I guess that's a good point.
If you're on
doesn't-
Everest.
yeah, that doesn't seem like a crazy distance. Okay, next question.
Second question is how many people typically inhabit the International Space Station at one time? Is it A, 2, B, 6, C, 8, or D, 12?
Josh, B.
I'm gonna go with. I think it's 12.
What was B?
B was 6.
6?
It's either it's not what Josh said because he's always wrong. It's either C or,
Six sounds
C or
right
D.
to me.
It's definitely not 2. It can't be 2.
All right, Josh.
Can't be 2.
What you got?
It is 6.
They can't be having two people up there.
No,
What if
that
one of them-
doesn't make good sense.
What if one of them keels over? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, they got to have more people than that.
All right, next question.
So, and those are all different nationalities, are they not? I mean, it's the International Space Station, so it's inhabited by many different people, correct?
That's right. Yeah, you've got people from 18 different countries have stayed on the space station.
Whoa.
Crazy.
That is a lot.
Okay.
How much interior space do you think the space station has in cubic feet? Is it 10,000 cubic feet, 17,000, 30,000, or 43,000 cubic feet?
Tim, 10,000
Nah, it's more than that.
What?
43,000, whatever 43,000
cubic
was.
feet.
Yeah.
All right, Josh.
I'm going to say
Cubic
10,000.
feet's kind of tough because you don't really
Yeah.
have a good feel for that.
Yeah.
Okay, the answer is 43,000 cubic feet.
What's up? Good guys are winning.
Yeah, but
Okay, so that's
that's not how it works. Everybody doesn't get a guess.
Yeah, they do.
look. Well, actually,
have
This
one
is-
and a
hey,
half.
Josh, look, Josh, the host, the quote unquote host, we're all having fun here, okay? So
yeah,
let's just
well,
keep it going.
we should have clarified
We
with
did.
Josh before
The rules
to ask him what his rules were.
that you know what? That's a good point.
Anyways,
well, we can't
okay.
go back. We can't go back in time. What are we gonna do?
We're just having fun.
yeah, we're all having fun.
Okay.
We're learning.
Hit us
learning.
with another question.
All right, all right. Next question is approximately how fast does the ISS travel while orbiting the Earth? Is it 600 miles per hour, 1,200 miles per hour, 17,000 miles per hour, or 36,000?
Dave, 17,000 miles per hour.
That is correct.
Oh, that's a good guess.
Yeah.
That's 5 miles per second, and they experience a sunrise every 92 minutes.
Dang. See, if I were on the International Space Station, I would be. I'm just going to say stressed out because it sounds like things happen differently up there. Like a sunrise every, what'd you say, 90 minutes?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Do you know how fast the Earth spins, Dave?
62. No, I don't.
It's about 1,000 miles per hour.
1,000
I learned
miles
that
per hour.
today randomly.
So we are cooking right now. All right.
And Earth is moving through the galaxy as well, so we're moving very fast.
I think it's about 66,000 miles per hour
What?
that we're orbiting
Oh,
the
okay.
sun
Gotcha.
and turning 1,000
I have
miles per hour.
no concept for how quickly that is.
I didn't either until today.
All right. I got the next question here, and that's, what is the longest consecutive stay aboard the International Space Station? Is it 14 days, 34 days, 160 days, or 340 days?
Tim, 340.
That is correct.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
thought-
because look, they can't be making trips up there.
Right.
I mean, you know, they
You
gotta.
got to hang out a minute.
Yeah, you commit to that.
That's
you,
a long time.
You got to give it a
Josh,
long time.
do you happen to know how long were those twins ever up there together, or did they always send them separately?
Those twins.
They were always separate. So what Josh is referring to is that 340 days was set by astronaut Scott Kelly, who was a twin. His twin brother is also an astronaut, and his brother stayed behind on Earth during that time, and they could measure the changes between them both. One being in orbit for 340 days and the other being on Earth for 340 days. And they actually could get a very good idea of how space affects the human body.
That's so bizarre.
Interesting. Okay, you got any more questions for us?
I have no more questions. I just have a little bit more background about the space station, and that is the fact that the space station covers the area of a football field.
Dang.
It weighs almost 460 tons.
Is there any? Do we have any reference for how much 460 tons is?
Yeah, I would have guessed it was heavier than that, but I don't know.
That's pretty heavy, Dave.
That's heavy.
Aren't
but
semi trucks like 48,000 pounds, which is 24 tons?
That seems excessive.
about right.
No?
I think 48,000 pounds is what they're allowed to carry.
Huh.
Yeah,
I don't know.
when you consider that the fact that was taken up piece by piece, you know,
that's incredible.
That's
many
cool.
years,
Cool.
that is quite a lot of stuff.
And rockets. They had to rocket that
I
chunk
know.
up there
I mean,
and then
the-
flip and put it together.
The
What?
amount of fuel
The
that
carbon
took.
footprint that is
Oh,
leaving.
God.
It's good that I wasn't on that project because I would have been like, guys, this is impossible. What do you can't do that.
Yeah.
So the space station was actually built starting in 1998. It was completed in 2011, and it was mostly built with the American Space Shuttle. It's carrying every piece up to orbit.
My frame of reference is all messed up. If you had told me it started in 1982 and was completed in 1995,
I agree.
I would have believed.
Yeah, I would have believed the 70s, honestly.
Was there a precursor to the International Space Station? Wasn't there like Skylab? When was that?
Skylab was, I believe, in the 80s. It was
Maybe that's what I'm
essentially
thinking about.
launched with Saturn V rockets. It was nowhere near as large as the International Space Station, but of course, Russia had the Mir space station as well.
Right, yeah.
Wow, forgot about
Interesting.
that. Is that still operational?
No, we shot it
No.
down.
They crashed Mir onto Earth. I forget how long ago it was, but I do remember that Taco Bell had a special promotion. If they hit a certain area of the ocean, everyone got free tacos.
Taco Bell, come on.
Yeah.
Let's keep it classy.
I do not remember that. Interesting. Well, cool. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I don't know who won, but
I won.
So
but
I
three-way
think Dave
tie.
did actually.
We're all losers.
He got two of the questions.
got three of them. I
There's
got
only
three of
like
them.
6 questions. So,
Yeah.
anyways, man, Josh, thanks so much for being on the show. That was really, really interesting. I feel like we got a really good primer, if you will, for astronomy. So I'm excited to start learning more about it because it's something I've always wanted to do, and I've got some information to go out there and learn it. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up the UK Man podcast for this episode. Guys, make sure to check out our Facebook group page where we will be posting some photos that Josh has taken of his astronomy. So definitely check that out.
We'll probably
as well.
put some up on Instagram too.
Yeah. We'll probably put some
the
up there.
gram.
On the gram, on the IG. Anyhow, guys, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, and we will catch you guys next time.